Good evening, Dr. Rivers. My name is Heather Rodriquez. I'm in your Management 655 course. This is my project on process improvement. My project is actually about the completeness of business or company, and my topic is Nike. And for this improvement opportunity, the completeness of a business or company is defined by the integration of all of its supply chain processes, as we know. It begins with the fundamentals of acquiring the necessary input material to the production processes and finally the post-production processes. So having said that, as we look at the growth and development of a business into a successful enterprise, it requires all of the above processes to be undertaken meticulously and with great proficiency. It takes time to get all of the above aspects right. Even the most successful businesses in the world have made certain mistakes over the years. So Nike is one of the greatest sportswear companies in the world. Over the years, the company has faced challenges in some spheres of its supply chain processes. These challenges have intricately been entwined with corporate social responsibility issues, elevating them to a whole new level. So having said that, we want to look at our improvement opportunity problem. So having said this, Nike has more than 100 contracted manufacturers that produce its products in China. As we all know, this is a large number of entities of manufacturing products for one brand. With such a large number comes some challenges. Basically, one challenge was identified with the contract Nike manufacturers. The manufacturers were not complying with Nike's standards of quality production. Again, this challenge was associated with two other aspects, all in the supply chain process domain, which is very important. First, Nike manufacturers were lacking the necessary awareness and training required for the code of production. Secondly, there was an ineffective communication between the suppliers and workers about the factory standards. These two aspects are elementarily the root causes of Nike's supply chain issues. So for this, we look at the quality tool analysis. A check sheet was the first tool that was used to evaluate the problem. The scores on the sheet were slightly above average, which is generally a low posting. To pinpoint the actual cause of Nike's predicament, a cause and effect diagram was used, which we will be showing you. It is through this diagram that the two causes of Nike's supply chain challenges were identified. This method was important because it has also showed the legitimacy of the causes of the problem, and that's very important, obviously, because as we're trying to drill down to what is truly a problem, we need to make sure we are pulling out any of the perhaps minor causatives and looking at the true cause of the problem. Lastly, a control chart was used to evaluate the entire research activity. Basically, a control chart has a horizontal line that depicts the right standard of quality. It is usually the baseline or reference when one is evaluating the quality adherence of a manufacturer. After the quality baseline is created, another line showing the current quality of a manufacturer's product is drawn. If the line is above the quality baseline, the product is great. If it is below, then the product is substandard. Unfortunately, the latter was the cause for this case for Nike's manufacturers. So next, we want to look at the stakeholder analysis. So as we look at the stakeholder analysis, first, we want to identify the stakeholders. Being a big company, Nike's a big market player. This means that the company has many stakeholders. The first stakeholder is Nike's financial investors. These are the individuals who are directly associated with risking their capital to invest in the company. Secondly, we have the board of governors or the committee. This is an agglomerate of senior officials of Nike. In most cases, these committee members are usually the major financial investors. The production company in China are the other stakeholders. All of the staff members and workers that are involved in Nike's supply chain processes are also stakeholders. The last group of stakeholders is Nike's customers, and clearly not least of which are the stakeholders. Nike's customers are very important. So as we look at the stakeholder analysis, we want to prioritize the stakeholders. From the power interest plotting for stakeholder prioritization, as you see on this PowerPoint, there are four main categories of stakeholders. All of these different categories have different approaches that should be used. If we look at high power, high interest stakeholders, these are the stakeholders. Let me get this where we can see. These are the stakeholders that have greatest impact on Nike. They have to be managed closely. They are mainly the board members that have executive positions in the company. High power, low interest stakeholders, they are powerful stakeholders who show little interest. They have the power to affect big changes, but due to their low interest, they are overshadowed by the high power, high interest stakeholders. These are the major capital investors that have little concern in decision making and policy formulation, but they have to be kept satisfied. Our low power, high interest stakeholders, these include the manufacturing companies and the loyal customers. These stakeholders have to be kept informed. Low power, low interest stakeholders, these are the random customers and some workers in the Nike supply chain processes. These stakeholders are only monitored with little effort. But understanding these key stakeholders, this is similar to the prioritization. However, this process is mainly based on the evaluation of financial and emotional investment of the various stakeholders. They are basically the board, committee members, and the major financial investors of Nike. So as we are looking at this, we move on to our planning and implementation. So the planning and implementation phases of the project are the most important. These the reason that they are materialized processes of the entire project, they bridge the rift between identified challenge and viable remedies. To project the most effective methodology to be used, it is crucial to break down the problem into manageable bits. That's very important. Primarily, Nike's problem is the production of substandard products by its contracted manufacturers, which you've already stated before are just many manufacturers. The first strategy is to implement is the restructuring and the reconfiguration of the standards of their production processes. This will provide a meriting criterion for the manufacturers. Secondly, there will be a pilot program for all the manufacturers. With the new standards, each manufacturer will run a pilot program, and the quality of products they produce during this time will be strictly assessed. As part of the plan, also, a quality and standards assurance department will be open for every manufacturer. The department will be run directly by the Nike company. Finally, periodic training and inspection will be held to make sure that the employees and manufacturers at large adhere to the quality threshold. And as we know, we want to be known for our quality, so it is important that we focus on this. So as we look at the business functions that will impact our action plan, the entire supply chain processes will be affected. This is because the aspect of quality needs to be stressed in every section of production. If, for instance, a Nike sneaker was a high-quality outer sole but a substandard inner sole, the whole sneaker is substandard, and we need to hold to those standards. Therefore, this action plan will affect all the supply chain processes. However, to mitigate the impact of the action plan, the top manufacturers can be assessed first and then allowed to continue with manufacturing processes. During their assessment, the Nike products in warehouses can be released into market. This will prevent any lapses in the market stability of demand-supply forces. It's very important to note that some manufacturers are able to meet the required quality standards. Therefore, they don't have to suspend their supply chain processes during the inspection and assessments. In this regard, they can increase their production activities to avoid the existence of a market void when the other manufacturers are being evaluated. Then we move on to the timeline. A lot of time would be required to execute the action plan. There are also some variables and parameters that would determine the time the action plan would take. For instance, during the inspections, the entire time taken would depend on the number of people conducting the exercise. However, this project gives a flexible time frame in which the plan action can be executed. The first action plan would be to reconstruct the quality standards. This is not lengthy. It requires a committee to be formed and tasked with responsibility. Afterwards, the standards that they come up with will need to be pacified by the Board of Governors. This exercise can take a month or two, depending on the meetings of the board. Let's see. Okay, we're not quite there. Let's go back a little bit. Okay. My apologies. There we go. Setting up quality assurance departments for all the manufacturers can take about 1 to 2 months. The pilot program can take about 6 to 8 months. During this time, every manufacturer would be reviewed. The workers would work under new quality standards and the product scrutinized by the quality standards department. Every step would be inspected and reviews given. In the cases of faulty or substandard products, the specific supply chain process would be identified and rectified. The last step would be to roll out the entire action plan into real-time action. The pilot program is a transition into the real-time or actual implementation. Therefore, the last stage doesn't take long, 1 to 2 months. Cumulatively, the project can take up to 14 months to be completely and effectively executed throughout all the contracted manufacturers. And remember, we're talking about quality, so we do not want to rush this performance improvement or process improvement. So our communication plan, what does that entail? Communicating with all the stakeholders would be undertaken through different channels and methods. The senior shareholders can be called into a meeting and the action plan rolled out for them. For the other shareholder, detailed emails can be sent to them about the action plan. Regarding the same, they will be allowed to ask for clarification on any gray areas. For the manufacturers, their top managers can be called into a meeting and given information. Afterward, they can also pass the information to their employees through memos. The customers and other stakeholders can be informed through the media, such as newspapers, social media, television, radio, and so on. So here we go. In conclusion, the success of an enterprise depends on a lot of variables. One of the most important aspects of any business is the relationship that exists between them and their market customer. Naturally, every customer needs the best quality products at the best possible price. If there is any discord or lack of balance between the two forces, customers may lose faith in that product. And that's where we have been. This is an undesirable outcome since it reduces the market command that a product has. Nike is a worldwide brand that has a reputation for being a top manufacturer of sportswear. Its quality quagmire is a situation that any top brand can be exposed to. However, if the above recommendations are executed effectively, Nike's problem can and will be solved. Thank you.